the David the Dog Trainer podcast, episode 14. 1-4.
We got past 13.
Here we are. Welcome. Here right now. You threw me off.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Groove. We're talking about music. We're throwing back to the old emo days.
Oh, yeah.
Jamming to some songs. And then I was getting ready to just smash that R button, hit the record, and then Josh threw me off because he didn't have the cameras going. So
I'm sorry.
here we are. Josh Dobe Productions in the house.
Hello.
I'm in the house. Nobody else is in the house.
No one else.
No one else is in the house. Doobie, what's good?
Oh, a beautiful day.
God, it's nice out.
Yeah,
We need an outdoor podcast.
We do. So
Next week. We're going to do it next week.
Yeah.
We're going to film it outside.
Right.
It's going to be a pain in the fucking ass to do. But
yeah. You really want to do this?
we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see how I'm feeling Wednesday of next week.
Otherwise, last night I did photos over at Aaliyah.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're opening up today, actually.
How was Philly?
Oh, Philly was beautiful. It was, it didn't snow there, thankfully. Just for context, if you guys forgot, last week we had a blizzard on the day that I have to go drive 6.5 hours.
Oh, God, I forgot it snowed. It snowed 7 days ago, and now it's 82 degrees outside. What's going on?
You got to love Io. Whoa, did you hear that?
Yeah. Can I cut out for half a second?
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay.
I think so.
But yeah, I did photos out there for a distillery. Manatawny still works.
Manatawny.
Yeah. In Philadelphia, they love like Native American names. Like everything is.
You know, I feel like that's just going east. There's that like in between Ohio and New York that there's a lot of like Indian reservations and stuff, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, and then like they have so many streets, their highways. I mean, and a lot of people use it for their businesses too. And I mean, it's cool, but man, some of it's like I always like forget. Like I had to think right there, like Manatawny, like because I always screw it up.
What's the rest stop that's on the way to New York? Like you pass through it going to like Buffalo and stuff. That's it's in an Indian reservation, and you get off the highway, and then you literally have to walk over this like covered bridge all the way across the highway.
I know what you're talking.
Allegheny or something like that.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
That rest stop was like our staple point where anytime we would drive out east if we were playing shows, or anytime I were just driving to Buffalo to hang out with Dave and Tyler and all of them, I would 100% of the time stop there.
Yeah.
They had a piano guy that would play in there all the time. Literally, they had a piano in the middle of the rest stop. There's somebody playing there. That was like my staple one. But I remember, like every time we'd go through there, huge Indian reservation, ton of casinos and stuff you could stop at.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Other than that, I was supposed to get tattooed, and that didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
It didn't
Didn't
happen.
you say that happened the last like 4 times you went out there?
Yeah, but this time, it's things happen, and it just didn't go according to plan. But I ate plenty of good food.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what'd you guys do while you were out there?
We went to the art museum, which their art museum is beautiful. They had a bunch of Van Gogh paintings, and it's really a sight to see if you go out there. It has the Rocky Steps. That's where he runs up.
Yeah. There. Took a picture like this on it.
Yeah.
At the top where the footsteps are.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, it's kind of creepy though. That on the side of it, they have like this giant golden Rocky statue.
It's not golden. It's like black, isn't it?
No, they have a golden one now too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that is kind of weird, I guess.
It's like
they have the big black
pony.
one of him like this.
Yeah, they have that one too down at the bottom of the stairs, but they put like a gold one up at the top.
That's a big ass building. And those really, I remember the first time we went there when we were playing a show, I was like, I want to run up the steps. And we're like walking around it. And we started on like the furthest point. Yeah. And we go around and we pass a couple stair sets. I was like, this isn't it. I was like, what's going on here? This doesn't look like enough steps. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Maddie at the time. She's just like, I think that's it. I think that's just it. You know, and we kept walking around. I was like, no way. And then we get to it, we see it, and I'm just like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's a big building.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we did that, and then we just hung out with a bunch of friends out there. So it was a good time.
Nice.
Yeah. And then, like I said, I did Aaliyah last night, and food's banging, dude.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go there.
Where's it at?
It's, you know where, is it Saucy Brew Works?
Yeah.
In Ohio City? Mm-hmm. what's that juice place? It's like Beet Jar or whatever.
Yeah, across from it.
Yeah, it's like Beet Jar, and then there's a street right after Beet Jar, and you go down that way, and it's like right there.
Oh, I know exactly where you're at. Mm-hmm. Interesting. I didn't realize that was there. Dude, there's a place right next door to Saucy, next to the Rising Star called Larder.
Yeah, dude, I love Larder.
There or not, yep. But that place is just like mind-boggling how good it is.
Yeah, it's in like that old fire station or whatever.
Yeah, I think the owner has like won a bunch of awards or something like that, like culinary awards and stuff because of how good of a chef he is.
Yeah, I don't know what sandwich I got there, but dude, it was amazing.
I think I've only eaten there like 3 times, but every time I've ever been there, it's been just unbelievable.
Yeah, but you and Kate should go to Aaliyah sometime in the next couple weeks or so.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was right there.
Yeah,
so
dude,
definitely do that.
He makes this braised pork it's like braised pork for 2 or whatever, but it's like lettuce wraps. But oh my god, dude, he like brought the pan out and he was just like pulling the bones out of the pork. It was just falling off. Mm-hmm. Oh my god, dude,
hell yeah,
it was so good.
That's cool. You got anything else lined up this week?
Nothing for this week. Next week, after the podcast, I'm actually going to Florida.
Jesus.
Yeah. My mom was like, will you go to Florida for your birthday? I was like,
oh, sure. Yeah, she's down there, right?
Well, she's visiting my grandma.
Yeah.
She's gonna be down that week. And then she was like, I'll fly you out just for the weekend. If you'll just come for your birthday. I was like,
oh, yeah.
Okay, fine.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, so I'm leaving Friday for that, and then we'll be down there, and then we come back Monday.
Nice.
Yeah, dude, I'm so excited. I'm about to eat so much seafood.
Yeah. I just want to like go like lounge on a tiki bar out there. You know? Just like sit in the sun.
Yeah, we're going to Fort Myers, and there's this place called the Lani Kai. Mm-hmm. And it's like where all the spring breakers go, you know. Like,
that sounds awful.
It's awful when it's in spring break, but now I think all the douchebags have gone home. But they have a rooftop, like it's like an 8-story hotel, and then on the top they have a rooftop tiki bar and restaurant. Man,
sounds great.
Yeah, you go up there and watch the sunset over the water.
Get a nice beautiful island drink in hand.
A
non-alcoholic island beverage. I'll take your finest coconut water.
Yeah, but it's great, man.
Hell yeah, that's cool.
I mean, you know, I love food, so
yeah, we're kind of tripped out. We did a lot of trips in the last few months, so we're kind of hitting pause on that for a little bit. We're going to Maine the end of next month.
Oh, nice.
For just a couple days with the family. Going to go to Acadia National Park.
Oh, yeah.
Do some hiking and stuff. And then I don't think we're going to do anything until the honeymoon, I think we finally determined we're going to go to Hawaii for it. So
you know when?
Yeah, so we wouldn't go until December because we're going in between her schooling semesters. So
I mean, that's perfect time to go.
Yeah, we were reading up on it actually last night, and it sounds like December is like one of the best times to go in. For weather and stuff.
I was going to say, I think it kind of cools off a little bit out there too, because it can get hot over there.
For sure.
Dude, it's beautiful out there though.
Never been. You been there?
I have, when I was like 14.
Nice. I feel like everybody I know has been there when they were a kid.
Yeah, which sucks is because you know, like, I didn't really it was cool, but it was like...
But you're like, you don't actually comprehend, like, where you're at, I feel like.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, this is a new beach. Woohoo.
When I was 15, I went with one of my friends to Las Vegas, and it was the same deal. It's like, we're walking around, and we're like, this is sweet. But at the same time, like, there's only so much you can do.
You can't do
You don't really comprehend anything.
Yeah.
I remember all the casinos, like, if you're under 18, you could walk through them, but you're not allowed to come to a stop, was the key. So we would walk through all the casinos, but if we came to a stop, somebody would come up to us and be like, you guys got to keep moving.
Yeah.
And I remember at night, like, some of the casinos would have, like, strippers and stuff dancing in them. So we're 15. We're just like, let's walk through these hotels.
Oh, my gosh. I was... Did you listen to the podcast, Joe's podcast with Alex Honnold?
Oh yeah. Some
recently?
Of it.
Yeah. Did you hear the part because he lives in Vegas?
Oh no,
he was like,
I didn't listen to the whole thing. I think I watched the clips.
Okay,
the 3 clips that he posted.
Yeah,
that dude is something else, man.
Yeah.
Alex Honnold.
Yeah.
Did you watch that movie?
Yeah, Free Solo.
Oh my god, get out of here.
Yeah,
no
crazy.
way. Listen, you go, right?
Yeah.
But like you listen to that guy talk and he has like, I feel like the sensories in his brain that process like emotions and stuff are just not there, which is why he's able to do that kind of stuff. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. But he lives in Vegas full time now, and he was just like, he's like, dude, the start of this pandemic, he was like, it was the creepiest thing. He's like, you would go down the strip, and, they still had like all the lights going and everything, but nobody was there. He's like, I was just half expecting like a zombie to walk out, and I was just like, I wonder how Vegas like got through that period, because
I don't know, man.
I mean, like Joe was like saying, like their business is the tourism business,
100%.
Yeah. And I just wish I could have seen that though, just see that, because every time I've ever been to the strip, there's just thousands and thousands of people. Just go down there and see nothing.
That'd be crazy. I think I saw some like photos and stuff of it.
Yeah.
Like when everything was closed down. Yeah, I think the thing I'm curious about is, so like those hotels and stuff, like even if they had no staffing and stuff at them, like I wonder how much overhead there is like per month and just like keeping the building like standing.
Yeah. Like their bills have to be like astronomical just to have like a space there on the strip.
Wild, man.
I mean, I guess Vegas had to have been like, we'll give you a break or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you figure so much of that money and that revenue is going to the city.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Exactly.
So, if there's less maintenance that they have to do on the city and stuff because there's less tourism and stuff.
Yeah.
Not that it balances out, but I'm sure it helps a little bit. But
yeah.
I'm really interested. I should do a little bit of like research and reading into some of those cities and stuff and how they handled those things. Because I don't know that much, honestly.
Yeah. I like the little bit I know, because I had a friend that worked at like Progressive Field. He was kind of like telling me about it. It's just like, you get there's like a lot of incentive to have like a stadium or like a nice hotel or something downtown for people to do. So you get like a huge like tax break or incentives that way. So I'm guessing that's...
Well, it brings, any of those places brings so much money to the city.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like a lot of people used to like to, this is kind of an extreme example, but I remember when like LeBron was here and like the Cavs were doing really good and a lot of people would like bitch and complain about how much money those athletes were being paid.
Yeah.
Right? Which, whatever, that's a different conversation, but they were being paid so much because they were bringing twice that to the city.
Oh, yeah.
Having a team that good or having a stadium like that or whatever draws so much business into that area where they immediately recoup that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they wouldn't pay that much if they weren't equally bringing that much in.
Yeah. I heard that for our home opener or whatever for the Indians, like they had to basically like turn people away because like everyone's been wanting to do something.
Yeah.
And I wonder, because like they just lifted the like outdoor ban or whatever.
I saw that.
So I wonder.
I wonder if that's going to affect the stadiums and stuff.
I figure like, yeah, because 95% of the Indian stadium is basically outside.
Yeah.
So like, are they going to just let them do like full cap?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure this year is going to be the best year for any sports team because everyone just wants to do something.
Hell yeah, especially football and baseball.
Oh,
two outdoor ones.
Yeah.
Two that people usually always went crazy for anyways. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Cool.
But
yeah. So I was telling Josh before we started here last week, one of my favorite ones we've done so far. I don't know what it was. We were talking about it, Matt, having somebody really like fresh in the game, being able to talk about that kind of stuff with him, and somebody that also already has such great like insight into things, well-spoken, stuff like that. Yeah. I think we had some really, really great conversations with that. The conversation felt like it just like flowed really nicely and stuff. I would highly recommend everybody check that one out. If you're, interested in getting involved in dog training, if you're interested in getting involved in any sort of business avenue and stuff, I think we talked about a lot of really great techniques and stuff to help your learning curve, to be able to help move you further along through whatever that is, and kind of to be as efficient as possible in your endeavors. So I think it was really sweet. I had a really good time with that one. So a couple things I was thinking about. So we've talked numerous times about wanting to do kind of like a more businessy focused podcast and stuff. I think that, Obviously I'm not a fucking business guru, but I do quite a bit of research on it. Obviously we run a company. You've been working for yourself for quite a long time now. I think, so one question I was thinking in last time when I was talking to Matt is so talk to me for a minute about what working for yourself means to you, and not just that, but like what inspires you about owning a business?
First of all, I think it's like the freedom, kind of being able to take the jobs that I want, write the schedule that I want, and I think the best part is there's no cap on what I can make financially. Like the harder I work, the more money I make, instead of
that direct impact.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like if I go out and if I take a day and grind out 100 emails to different clients, and I get, a bunch of responses back. Whereas if I don't know, worked for someone else, it's like, oh, that's cool. Like I'm helping the brand, the business or whatever, which is cool, which, some people that's for them. But I feel like working for myself, I just feel way more motivated. I think motivation and freedom, long-term goals are just a lot easier to achieve when you're owning your own business.
Yeah. I think that I would agree with you. I think a lot of it, and it's interesting because I remember when Matt was on, we were talking a bit about, how there are some employees out there that will work for other people, and because they find so much value in their work, they're willing to grind and put in that and stuff.
Yeah.
In my mind, as somebody who is quote unquote entrepreneurial, or somebody that enjoys the aspect of working for myself and stuff, it's like, it's hard to see that it's kind of hard to see that pay out and be able to really, in your head envision what that looks like as far as like how much you work in a 8-hour day versus your compensation for that. Right. I think a lot of that has to do with just the risk to reward and how people process those types of things, right? Yeah, like you have, like you were just talking about, like all of those positives and all of those ups and those downs, but in the end of the day, you're still the last line of defense with things. And if shit hits the fan, or you get slow, or this or that, like you could work all those hours in a week, and you have all of the reward of it, but it also can fall apart very quickly, right? You don't have that kind of fallback of, if I have a lazy day and I kind of slack off for a little bit or something like that, you're not going to get paid. If you own your own business. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's a very scary thing.
Sure.
And I think that stops a lot of people at the end of the day. Like, I could probably be successful at this, but what if this, what if that, what if this, and I mean, I've been the same way. Like there's times that I wake up and I'm like, oh God, like, I'm like, I have these clients this month, but I don't have anything lined up yet for next month. Like, but that's when you have to just work through that and and put your nose to the ground and just keep trudging along, because it will come if you keep working at it. Yeah.
It's interesting. I remember two very distinct feelings that I had before. One, when we first started Heights, it wasn't even the Heights. I don't think I was ever really nervous moving into Heights, because at the time, the way we transitioned was so easy. We were already working for somebody else, and we kind of had a built-in clientele in that location for like daycare and boarding. Yeah. And we kind of already knew and we only had two of us, right? It was me, Jake, and we had one employee, right? So because of that, we had this... We had this kind of built-in safety net where we knew all of our immediate expenses were going to be covered just through that stuff, and anything additional that we did was going to kind of just be like icing on the cake. I remember the time when I got really scared was transitioning from Heights to Miracle, because that was the first time I was branching off on my own. I had very little safety net at the time from a financial standpoint, right? I think I had maybe a couple of months revenue in, to be able to operate like all of our expenses and stuff like that. And I had a full staff at that point, so like our overhead was still already very high with things, and we weren't doing a ton of daycare and boarding at that facility, right? So we didn't have that safety net there. It was just training, right? And in my mind, I remember this kind of like that internal conflict of like second guessing myself of like, are these people coming right now for me still from a training standpoint? Is that how people are finding me? Or is it really just like, I remember Jake and I got in arguments before where it was just kind of like, well, you know, like the daycare and the boarding is what fuels your training kind of thing, which, you know, in my mind, I was like, no, like we're building a training name for ourselves. So I think that business is going to continue following me. But I remember transitioning between the two and being like, fuck, is he right? Like, is it really just like all of the daycare and boarding that they're doing that's supplying the dogs for us to train? And are we going to have no interest because nobody's going to know what the fuck we're doing, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember that being just super scary initially, right? Of like, we're going to bite this bullet and we're going to go for it, but like, we might not have money coming in for these first couple of months, you know?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that because, you know, like for me, I mean, I didn't have employees. I didn't have a place that I'm renting out, you know, and that was scary enough, like to go on my own.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I can only imagine having that on top of like, starting from basically the ground up.
Yeah. And I think some of it was irrational fear because we weren't starting from the ground up. We had still spent the last X amount of time building a name for ourselves, you know, and building kind of a clientele and a reputation in the area and stuff. But it was that like that second guessing, right? Like, is this going to work, right? When you finally take away, again, going back to that risk versus reward, like I could work all day, but if I don't have business, it's still not going to do me that much good.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a really interesting thing. So that was one. And then I remember as our expenses kept going up from an employee standpoint and stuff, I remember every single month, I feel like every month we'll have like a 5 to 7 day period of time where, you know, phone calls will be a little low, you know, we're not really booking anything. We're not getting that much new contact forms and stuff. And then in my head, I'm like, fuck, we're not going to make any money this month. We're not going to make any money this month. Yeah. And then, you know, obviously the rest of the month comes along. It's like, oh, okay, cool. We're actually fine. But it is, you know, it's you have to be able to stomach those ups and downs like that. And again, we're really, really lucky from a standpoint of having found stability financially like that and knowing what we need to bring in from that standpoint and operating under our means a little bit and stuff. But, you know, if you can't stomach and tolerate that, it's going to be really, really challenging, you know? So yeah. And I think as far as, you know, the flexibility and stuff that it provides, you know, that's kind of the big thing that I look at. Like I remember reading, I don't remember when it was. It's some book I read where, you know, they talk about, you know, if your business is dependent on you to run, you have a job, right? You know, if your business is able to operate independently, it's a business, right? And we talked about this before back when we did episode 4 or whatever it was when we were talking about the employee reviews that we did. And we were talking about the idea of like my big goal being creating infrastructure and having a business that's going to operate and be able to provide like a high level of service to everybody without the need of all those, you know, without the need of me and bottlenecking myself and everything.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing that interests me right now from a business standpoint and inspires me is, can I provide those opportunities for everybody else to feel similar to as if they owned a business without having all of that risk involved, right?
Okay.
Finding different ways to compensate or provide incentives and stuff for employees where they feel like they're really being taken care of and they feel like they could still enjoy all of those perks, you know, from a standpoint. That's something that really interests me and motivates me with it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think another thing that I wish I would have known when I started was I didn't really have a clear direction. And I think I've talked to you about this a bunch of times, is I knew I wanted to do some sort of media, but I was all over the place. And I hadn't really nailed down what exactly it was that inspired me. And I think for that first like 3 years, I was just kind of in limbo, searching for what exactly it was that I wanted to do with when I was my career path, which I finally kind of nailed down, like with the food and stuff and the portrait photography. But, you know, I was doing anything and everything. I was just scraping by, trying to take anything that could out of the barrel. And I think that really actually stifled me for the first few years because it was like walking with no direction.
Yeah.
And
well, you're just trying to stay afloat at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's normal. Like that's what, we talked about this, like when we first started training, or when I first started training, we used to take any client for anything and we would create something for that person no matter what. Mm-hmm. Because no matter what, when you're starting your own business, you need money coming in and you need clients coming in.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It's when you start getting too busy, that's when you need to start picking and choosing those things.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people make the mistake of skipping that step and trying to be too nitpicky before they're at that point, though.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
I think there's a balance with it. I guess it can especially if you don't know what going into it, what you want to specialize in, it's going to be difficult to prioritize and emphasize those things, right?
That's true.
So for example, like in my case, like I knew the type of work I wanted to do from the beginning, and I knew that did not involve doing service dog training or CGC tests or therapy dogs or just single session one-on-one classes or any of those types of things, right? I knew I wanted to do just full programs with dogs. I wanted to do behavioral modification, and I wanted clients that were going to be committed, right? So because I still had that North Star, I was able to see through all of the bullshit that I kind of just had to take, all of that business that was coming in where it's like, okay, cool, I can help you with these problems. I don't necessarily want to be doing that long-term, but I know how to solve that, and I could definitely create something for you. Or, hey, this task training you want to do with this service dog over here, like we know how to kind of work through that kind of stuff, and we could provide that for you here and there. But long-term, I know those things aren't going to be beneficial for me. So I was able to do those things while still seeing out in the future over there of what I wanted. So as I got more things in like that, I could prioritize those things differently, or I could emphasize those things differently from a promotional standpoint through like social media and stuff,
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to balance it, is not cutting that stuff out altogether initially, but knowing still where you want to go.
Yeah.
Right? So you could hone those skills more sharply.
Yeah.
No,
that's a great analogy, because I wish I would have had that. I think that was my problem in the beginning, because I didn't have that like long-term directional goal, So it was just like all over the place. I was just static everywhere. And I think it was a slow realization of what I wanted to do. And I think I just had to dip my toes into everything first to find it. Sure. And I did find it. And I'm still doing things that aren't just food related or whatever, and that's fine, and I don't mind it. But I think I am in that turning point right now with the business that I know that's my clear direction, and in the future, I'm hoping by the end of this year or next year that is all I'm doing. But right now, I'm still taking these other jobs as they come. But it is starting to make this like clear point at the end. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
So what sort of things, when you first started getting started with all this, helped you to find that goal, right? Were there certain things that like inspired you or like kept you moving and searching for that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Like I said last week, I got into this because I thought I was going to be a vlogger.
Yeah.
I was going to be the next Casey Neistat, which I mean, I look about as good as he does, but I don't have his creativity. But I realized really quickly that wasn't for me. And that's what kind of started the search. I think what really hooked me onto it was I was talking with my friend Adam Peterson. He's like a pretty known chef throughout the Cleveland area. He's worked with a lot of higher up chefs in the industry, and he worked with me at Melt for a little bit, and now he works for like a food supply company. He kind of works with everybody throughout the city, and he was just like, "Hey man, like you obviously had a passion when we worked at Melt, like you loved food and everything. Like I think it would be something that would be good for you." And like it was like a long talk with him about it, and then he got me my first food job. Actually, Aaliyah was the first food shoot that I did, and I don't know, man, it was just like so much fun. It was, I don't know, I'm sure you've had those times where it's like you worked with a dog and you were like, I love this. Like, it was just like perfect, like a perfect like union of like your willingness to work with that dog, but also you're enjoying it completely,
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened with me that day. I was just like, man, this is a lot of fun. So I just started searching for more people that would need that. And man, it just took off in my brain. And I was like, this is my direction.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think you're totally right. Is finding those things that spark that creative touch in you more, and where you really start to enjoy it. And I know, I found that fulfillment through feeling where I was the most impactful with the work that I was doing.
Yeah.
There were certain clients that I worked with that I didn't even realize it when I was necessarily training the dog, but I remember sending the dog home and doing the one-on-one sessions post board and train, or doing, finishing up the one-on-one classes we were doing or whatever it was. And hearing some of these people just flat out tell you how much of a change you made directly on their life, right? From a serious standpoint, or in your case, how much of an impact you made on their business through helping them with something like this, or how productive they've noticed things do, where you're just in your head, you're like, okay, cool, this makes sense. That's where you start to find that internal value in yourself, right? You start to realize what I'm actually providing is past just a service. It's helping to make somebody's life easier or better or improve on something that they really care about. Because even though, it's not a living thing in your case with a restaurant or something, that's still people's life work in a lot of these cases, right? So if you could help them to make it better or to continue growing it, that's huge, right? You're tapping into that kind of emotional side of things for both of them as well as you.
Yeah. And well, that's why I've been delving a little bit more into wanting to get into portrait photography, because the few things that I have done for people, I've done a couple engagement shoots and stuff like that, and they come back and they're just like, wow, I didn't think we could look that good, and it really benefits their life to have something like that. And I just really like that beautiful side of people, being able to take something and make them feel good about the way they look, And I think Brittany Gidley, got to shout her out again. She kind of helped me kind of realize that when I was she was helping me out a little bit there, She took me to that little photography meetup, and I met a lot of people through that.
Oh, I forgot about that. I forgot you went to that.
Yeah, that was a fun time. And then, I was just talking to her about how she got into everything. She just started as a second shooter at a wedding, for a wedding photographer. Yeah. And then she found her way to where she wanted to go, because, the first thing was she wanted to help give back to the babies in the, what was that unit called? The pediatric ICU or whatever. Whatever it's called. Sorry, Brittany. But, it was cool to hear her direction.
The NICU.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, there it is.
Yeah.
But it was cool to hear her story of that's why I wanted to do that, so I could give back to that. And then it just kind of sparked this whole journey of her own, and look where it's taken her, Yeah. And that's really, really inspiring. It's something that I would like to get into myself for my portrait, the portraits that I want to do. So she's been a huge inspiration. She's kind of started out the same way, just kind of was I want to do this.
Yeah.
I want to try it, and pretty much taught herself everything.
Yeah, I think figuring out a way to give back, it's weird. It's weird, and it feels shitty saying this sometimes, but it's weird how some of those things you're doing from the goodness of your heart, but also how much some of those things can impact you and your business. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it kind of because it showcases who you really are. Yeah. But that's the same stuff we used to do when we would donate these programs to rescues and stuff. Right. Yeah. It's kind of it's kind of we're mutually helping each other out. I'm providing this thing for you, and I'm helping and I'm giving back. And unintentionally through that, it's like karma, right? It kind of comes back to you and helps to grow your business, right? Yep. We saw so much of that when we would do those free board and trains for the rescue dogs.
Yep.
Dude, those rescues that we worked with still we are the person they refer people to at this point. We've gotten so much business through doing that, and it feels good to have helped somebody at the same time, right? It's so cool to see some of these dogs that we've trained and helped to home out, doing great in their homes, and knowing we provided something good for them, you know? But, it feels shitty saying it because you kind of got to play that game a little bit too long term, right? You know, and those types of things can help you a lot as a growing business, is looking at, you know, like, what do you really care about, right? Like, what are you passionate about? What do you want to help with or impact with? And then go and do those things because those things will benefit you, right? It's a weird concept, you know?
Yeah. There's a photographer I follow. He's out in California, but he follows, there's like this little nonprofit that showers and gives haircuts to the homeless, but he'll go and take photos, like before and after photos, and like tell the people's story, like in the captions of his photos.
Yeah.
And he does that completely free, like just to give these people some happiness to see their before and after, but they're really, really detailed, like really nice portraits. And he just does it out of the goodness of his heart. And like, he's gotten, brand deals with like Canon, Paul C. Buff, which is the light modifier that I use. But he's gotten so much business and notoriety off of doing this, you know, like thing that he just was like, I want to do it, you know, to help these people.
Yeah, 100%. So,
yeah, that's just like another one of those success stories of doing something nice.
Yeah.
For nothing, and then you getting something back tenfold, you know? And I would love to do something like that. I just don't know what yet.
Yeah. I think one interesting thing that I'm trying to do with the podcast and just in general, like one of my current personal North Stars that I'm trying to reach right now from like a broad spectrum here is helping to change the mindset of like newer trainers and stuff, right? So like we've talked before about how I think that I don't know. I look at owning a business. So to answer the question I initially asked you of like what inspires me about having a business.
Yeah.
I've talked about this before. Like, I never had dreams of owning a business, you know, like that was never even in my thoughts. Frankly, 6 months before we started Heights K9, it wasn't even in my thoughts, right? Yeah. It was just an idea that we fell into where it's like, we need to get out of the situation we're in right now. We really enjoy this type of work we're doing. Let's just do it for ourselves so we don't have to deal with the bullshit of working for somebody bad, right? Because we didn't have access to like a good company to work for doing it with, right? So that was cool. And then in starting it, right, you start realizing all of the perks involved in that process and all of the risk involved in that process, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm still learning the business side of things, right? I'm still learning the like the staff side of things and the business side of things, all these kinds of things, and figuring out how to do it properly. But I know that I really care about the work that I'm providing, and because I care so deeply about the work that I'm providing and have spent the time to figure out all of those other things, I've been able to be really successful, obviously.
Yeah.
The dog training world is an industry right now, we've talked about this, that new trainers get into for the wrong reason. Instead of really loving and caring about the work they do, which I'm sure they like it, right? But they're doing it because it's an easy way to make money, right? And that's why the industry is getting watered down and this and that. And right now, there's no voice out there in dog training that's you know, putting on these new trainers and helping to show them here are the learning curves to do better work. Instead, they're just showing them here are the learning curves to make more money, right? Which is fine. Like I said, like it comes with the territory, right? Like you have to figure out the business side of things, but there's not enough emphasis on that. So that's why I'm loving working with newer trainers and having Matt on, who is a new trainer, and you know, having these people come in for, you know, little shadows or hangouts and stuff like that. And the people we're going to be having in next week are 2 clients of mine that are very, very interested in getting started in the dog training world, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm trying to put those people on, and I'm trying to share as much knowledge from a training standpoint as possible to help them provide good work. Because the goal from a dog training industry in general is to help people, not to make money. And if you help people, you will make money, right? But you got to go in that order, right? You can't just do it all out of order, because then you're just going to turn into a greedy fuck and not do good work and just realize you could kind of do the shortcuts, right? So that's my North Star right now, is figuring out like how can I provide a platform that's going to help those people in the best possible way. you know?
Okay.
And that is such a huge goal of mine right now. And I love doing it so much, you know, it's like, okay, it's like cool. Like, you know, Matt is 30 minutes away from me, right? Like he trains 30 minutes away from me. Am I nervous about us stealing each other's business and this and that? Like, no, I don't care about that because I know there's no lack of business out there, right? I want to be the person that puts all these people together.
Yeah.
So that's a big goal right now. And that's something that's really been inspiring me lately.
Yeah. I mean, even not even stealing business. I mean, it's like, let's say Matt runs into like someone that wants him to train, but he knows it's like over his head right now. Who's he gonna send that person to? He's gonna send them to you.
Sure.
You know? And it's just gonna be a nice little network. Like, and I think that's the thing that so for an outsider's standpoint on the training world.
Yeah.
It seems to be very cutthroat, like,
yeah,
you know, my way or the highway, or like,
yeah,
you know, it just seems like there's been a lot of that, like through the few years that I've been like working with you, and that does kind of suck.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
You know, like because when we went, so like just an example, when we went to Florida, with Joe. You know, that was really cool. Like, he opened up his business with his clients coming in to listen to you, and everyone just learned more. You know, everyone had a great time. Everyone felt more confident about things that they were doing, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, why wouldn't you want that? I mean, I know we've talked about ego and stuff like that. I'm sure that's a big thing of it. But if everyone just, like, worked together, it would be such a better, like, experience for people getting into the training world.
Yeah, I mean, working together and just being open to other ideas and other opinions and stuff, and being able to provide a network where we can continue to help people. You know, I mean, like you were saying, like we are creating exactly that, right? And if I can continue to branch that out past just Northeast Ohio, and you know, talk to other new coming trainers elsewhere, like we have a lot of new trainers that reach out to me from around the country and stuff like that, where I want to be able to help those people, right? I don't want to like turn them away or be like, screw you, you need to go do this or pay me for this or whatever, right? Like I want to assist those people, especially those people from out of town, right? If I get a new trainer that reaches out from whatever, California or Idaho or wherever the fuck, you know, that's, you know, me being able to impact them and help them do better work out there. Like they're going to do it one way or another. So why wouldn't I do it with the standpoint of like, I'm helping them to do it better than they were going to do it before. So those clients are going to get more value and then be in that person's head as far as the person that they refer their friends to and the other people they talk to from a standpoint of you need to check out this person's work. You need to check out these philosophies, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big goal right now. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Which I think we've been on the right track so far. I mean, I feel like especially after like the first few episodes, like we started to get into gear of exactly what you were talking about. You know, I think we've answered a lot of questions from people that are trying to do the dog training stuff. And we've talked a lot about how to start from the ground up, you know? So I think we're getting to the exact spot that you want to be at.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. So, we are going to get into here. We're going to be getting into some questions and stuff that we got on Instagram. And then depending on how much time we have after that, we are going to dive into some additional reading related things that we haven't done yet because we need to.
Perfect.
So let's go and let's pull some up here, see what we got. All right. So posted on Instagram earlier today looking for some questions. So we got a handful of them here. So
perfect.
Also, anybody who has questions, I know I tend to post on Instagram, you know, usually the day of that we're going to be filming. Message them away. Hit me up at David the Dog Trainer and DM me any questions you have, and we will make sure we get any and all of them answered. All right. So, first question here is from Jess Garrich. So, Jess asks, Pilsner is getting older and is so sensitive to sounds. He barks at nearly every little noise during the day. Car door, neighbor taking garbage can out, someone talking outside. He's fine during the night, but it is a nuisance while working from home. I admit training got pretty laxed after he got sick a few years back. So Pilsner is a dog that I worked with probably like 6 years ago, legitimately. So it was when I was still working for Rob. Pilsner actually was one of Rob's clients that I kind of took over for a little bit. And we just did some foundational work. I think we did a couple of lessons, like introduced an e-collar, things like that. So if I had to take a guess, I would guess this dog is probably 9 or so now. He's definitely getting older. So a couple things here. So obviously, 2 big points here. He's getting older, and he got fairly sick a few years back. I do remember her posting about that. I don't remember exactly what that sickness was, but he was definitely not feeling good. So when I hear both of those things, what I typically am led to believe is that, like she said, training is pretty non-existent at this point, right? So Pilsner is a dog that used to have a history of reactivity. He was really bad out on walks and stuff, and that's a part of the reason why we did those one-on-ones, to start working through those things. So this is a prime example of what we talk about sometimes when we say that training is for the lifetime of the dog, right?
Yeah.
There is never a period of time when we are going to stop training our dog, or we're going to hit a point where it's like we no longer need to maintain this stuff or this or that, because no matter what, things will start popping back up, especially things your dog has a history of doing, right?
Yeah.
So you'll know, Josh, when you were here and Kate let the dogs out while we were in the backyard, notice they had e-collars on, right? Now, our dogs don't have e-collars on all the time, obviously, but I've talked about this before. 3 situations I will always put e-collars on my dogs is if we're having people come over the house. So in this case, you were at the house, right? If we are going off leash anywhere, or if we're going to any sort of public place. And the reason for that is because those 3 situations are situations where our dogs are the most likely to blow us off in, or most likely to rehearse these things. Now, we strategically put the e-collar on any time in those situations to ensure that if something comes up, we could address it when it comes up.
Yeah.
Right? Forever. Even when the dog hits a point where they no longer rehearse those behaviors, in Pilsner's case, right? Even if he's no longer reacting at other dogs, I forever, for the end of time, will always put an e-collar on him when I take him for a walk, because I know at some point, because he has a history of rehearsing those issues, I'm going to need to utilize it still, right? At some point. It may be once every 3 months. That may be once every 6 months. I don't know, right? But he's going to try it eventually, right? Now, the reason why I say this is because not that she's having issues on the walk necessarily, but you will notice that as we let things slide in certain areas, or as our dog realizes they can go extended periods of time where they're not going to get consequences for certain negative behaviors, no matter how big or small they are, those issues get a little bit worse and a little bit worse and a little bit worse over time, right?
It's going to come back.
So it may not even be the dog needs to wear the e-collar in the house so you can correct for all of these noises and stuff. It may just be that you need to find what are those structured situations that you're going to need to have the e-collar on all the time for, right? And what sorts of things do you need to give consequences all the time for so that it bleeds over into all these other places, right? So the first thing I would do is I would get the e-collar out. I would make sure that it's charged up, and I would make sure that every single day you implement it into some situation in your day-to-day, right? If you're walking him still pretty regularly, I would definitely put it on when you're out on the walks. And then I would pick whatever your highest traffic time during the day is when you're working and make sure he has it on in that situation as well, right? And then what I would do is I would implement that essentially forever. For the remainder of this dog's life, he's going to wear the e-collar in these handful of situations, and you're going to make sure that you're ready to correct for any of that nonsense as it comes up right away, right? Don't use, this is not a getting more sensitive to the noises kind of thing or anything like that. It has nothing to do with because he's older, he's more irritable or whatever it may be. It has everything to do with the fact that right now, the dog has just realized that he can get away with these things again.
Yeah.
Right? So when I see questions like this, that's almost always what I'm starting to see. So again, long-term maintenance, keep that in mind, right? We're never getting off of the e-collar, right? We're never and again, it's not even an e-collar thing. We're never getting off of giving the dog consequences for poor behavior, right? Because the more, because I'm consistent about putting it on in those situations, I know every single time the dog does it, I'm going to be able to address it and I'm never going to get caught off guard, which means that I'm going to develop that long-term habit of them not doing it, but I'm still going to position myself to be able to address it those few times that it sneaks out, right? So pretty simple one, honestly. I would just say, like I said, you got to get a little bit more consistent about stuff. And it doesn't mean you need to sit down and do an hour of training a day, right? Everybody kind of uses this as like the reason of like, I got lax with the training.
Yeah.
And I think it's because in their mind, they look at it like when we were doing one-on-ones where you needed to sit down and do like 2 15-minute sessions a day or this or that. And you needed to like chunk out time for it.
Yeah.
Where it has nothing to do with that. Your training that you're going to be doing with them is going to be happening while you're working from home. You know, it's going to look like cool. We're at our desk. We're typing. My e-collar remote is right here. Pilsner's off. Fucking off, doing whatever he wants to do. Oh no, there's a car door. Pilsner. Oh. No. Tap. Back to work. It's literally as simple. I mean, it's literally.
And you just did it.
You know what I mean? Like that's your training, right? There's nothing. There's nothing intense about it or anything. It's just simply being in a position to address those things as they come up. Because here's what usually happens, right? No e-collar on the dog. Same situation. In a Zoom meeting, dog starts barking. He's freaking out at a window out there or something like that. And it's like, hold on. Pilsner, hey, come here. What are you doing? Stop it. Get in your crate. Go to your bed, right? It turns into a whole production because there's no easy way.
Yeah.
That you could, there's nothing you could do about it at that point. So instead, you get frustrated. Your energy level comes up, which just brings Pilsner's energy level coming up, which then disrupts your meeting or whatever email you're sending or whatever it may be. And it just turns into a disaster.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to position yourself to be able to address these things immediately when they come up. It'd have it just be matter of fact, simple, right? Dog does what you don't want. You're at your desk. No, tap. Done.
Boom.
So that's what I would recommend. Get really consistent about that and figure out. Here's the thing that you need to do. Figure out what your long-term maintenance plan is. What situations does he need to maintain that collar all the time? Because you're used to those situations being the times that he would typically blow you off in, right?
All right.
If you do that, good to go. All right, let me catch my breath for a minute. What do you think, Josh?
No, I think that's something that you know, like you said, it's an easy thing to fall out of. You know, oh, it's been a couple of years. I don't want to like have to put the collar on him every time and blah blah blah. Like, but yeah, you're always like it's a living thing,
dude. Every day there's some sort of situation we put the e-collar on the dogs. Every single day.
Yeah,
I still do it. I've been training my dogs for like 7 years now.
Yeah,
you know, and every single day I still do it.
Yeah.
So that's just something you just got to do. There's never a time I'm just going to start letting stuff slide. And here's the thing. If you notice certain things pop up, right, something random that's out, like in my case, something outside of those 3 situations of people coming over off leash or out in public, right? Say it's just in the backyard, there's more stuff to smell out there and they get sloppy with coming into the house at night or something like that. You isolate that thing and you put the e-collar on in those situations for a week or 2 and you work through the problem and then you fade it back out again, right? But you do that stuff forever and you don't let stuff hit the point where they start getting really intense, right? The second I were to see my dogs start getting reactive to noises outside, we would be getting an e-collar on and we would be addressing that and making sure they realize they can't do that. The second, that way you squash it, right? When it's really minor still, you say, hey, that thing we're not doing. We're not playing that game right now. You know? As opposed to, oh, it's just a little thing. We'll let it slide a little bit. Oh, we'll see if he does it next time. He stopped when I said, hey, you know, so it's okay right now.
Yeah.
And you let it get a little worse until it's a big problem again. You know,
you give them an inch, take a mile.
Listen, do you remember the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie? If you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to want a glass of milk.
Yeah. I mean, even for her, just having that peace of mind, you know, while you're working, why do you obviously like, she's got to be like kind of on edge, like is my dog and like flip out
disrupt
right
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you start getting into disruptive times. And here's the thing. Actually, here's a great way to look at it, right? So even though there's not people physically at your house, if you're on a Zoom meeting or something, look at it like people are at your house. Because you're basically entertaining from afar. So that's the reason why. Is because when people are coming over, my dogs are likely to be disruptive, right? So you got to treat it that way.
That's good. That's good.
Dude, I've said this before. The reason why this pandemic has created so much business for dog training. So here's the thing. With the pandemic, dog training blew up, right? It was like, I feel like one of the best industries you could have been in with all this stuff going on. And I feel bad because, like, you know, obviously there are a lot of people that are hurting and a lot of businesses that are suffering and stuff right now. But a lot of people are seeking dog training help right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, oh, have you been getting busy with all these COVID puppies and this and that? And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, we've definitely gotten people that have gotten puppies over that time. But 90% of that business is not puppies right now. 90% of that business is people who have had dogs for years and years and are now just realizing how absolutely psychopaths they are.
Yeah.
Because you figure, just like she was saying, like if you're used to like your dog being crazy, but you just like leaving and going to work, right? And whatever, you know, and not needing to worry about them for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, right? And you start working from home and you're trying to be in meetings and you can't even be in this meeting because if your dog's loose with you, they're jumping all over you and barking and being disruptive. And if you go stick them in another room, they freak out because they can't be away from you.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally can't work then. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You literally, like, there's nothing you can do about it at that point.
Nope.
And I think a lot of people have realized they've essentially ran away from their problems with their dog for too long. And now that they're stuck home with them, they need to actually do something to solve them.
Yeah.
So we've seen that.
Yeah. You're a captive audience to your own destruction.
Yeah. And it's wild for sure. All right. Moving on to the next one here. Okay. This is a good question. Emma asks, sorry if you already mentioned this in a previous episode. I'm a little behind. Interested in the science of the e-collar. So many people don't understand how it works and why it is an effective tool.
Ooh.
Oh, good one. Science.
Dang.
Science rules.
Why do we always get such good questions?
Well, this is Emma. This is actually the girl that's coming in next week for the podcast.
Perfect. Foreshadowing.
Yes. Foreshadowing.
Dude, I'm excited now. She's going to ask these kind of questions.
All sorts of good questions. Her and her friend Margot, they both ask very good questions. So they're both coming next week.
Nice.
All right. So science, right? Let's break down first and foremost because everybody likes to use. So this is, you know, getting back to the positive only trainers versus this and that. They all love to quote, we use science-based training, blah, 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 blah. It's science, this, that. Okay, cool. First off, we have to define what is science in training, right? So science, commonly referred to as science, is just learning theory, right?
All right.
This is a good one. This is going to be one of our clips. So start clip.
Okay.
All right. Learning theory. What is learning theory? Because I would literally bet you that 7.865 out of 10 trainers cannot successfully articulate what learning theory is, and that's a problem, right? This is getting back into the conversation about new trainers not learning the things they need to learn. So this is for the new trainers. This is for the old trainers that don't know this stuff. This is for the people that just want to know. The people that want to know.
The 7.685.
The 7.685. All right. Learning theory is positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment. Okay. Those are the 4 quadrants of learning theory. That means those are the 4 different types of ways that any person, mammal, whatever, can learn.
Okay.
So let's break them down. So let's first say that you have positive and you have negative, and then you have reinforcement and you have punishment.
All right.
Positive means that you are always adding something to the equation, right? So whatever you are doing, you are adding something, right? Negative means you are taking something away. Reinforcement means you are increasing the likelihood of a behavior. Punishment means you are decreasing the likelihood of a behavior. So now let's start combining. What is positive reinforcement, Josh?
You're giving treats and love.
You're adding something to the equation.
Adding something to the equation.
Increase the likelihood of a behavior.
Okay.
What is negative reinforcement?
You're taking something away.
Removing something from the equation to decrease the likelihood of a behavior, right?
Man.
So positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. Positive punishment. You are adding something to the equation to decrease the... I lose my train of thought for a second. See, I'm getting all hyped up right now. You're adding something to the equation to decrease the likelihood of a behavior. Okay. Negative punishment. You're removing something from the equation to decrease the likelihood of a behavior. So let's break these down now. Positive reinforcement. I'm giving the dog a cookie when they sit to increase the likelihood that they will sit.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Negative reinforcement. I am removing pressure on a leash or on an e-collar to increase the likelihood of a behavior, right? So in that case, that could be, okay, I hold down stimulation on the e-collar, I move the dog onto the bed, I release the stimulation when they get onto the bed. That release of pressure should elicit a positive response and let the dog know whatever you're doing right now is correct, right? So it's increasing the likelihood of them getting onto that bed. Positive punishment. The dog jumps on me, I give a high-level correction on the e-collar and tap the button one time, and the dog gets off, right? So I'm adding a correction to decrease the likelihood of the jumping. They learn when they jump, something bad happens. You touch the stove, it burns you, you realize, ouch, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Negative punishment. This is the one that people don't typically understand very well, right?
Okay.
You're removing something from the equation to decrease the likelihood of a behavior. So say I'm doing food training with a dog, right? I'm giving them treats for sitting. Dog jumps on me. I stop giving them treats, right? Okay. I'm removing something from the equation so that they realize that jumping on me is no longer getting me rewarded, right? So it decreases the likelihood of that. Then they sit back down. I start giving them treats again, right? So understanding all of these things is the first step, because this has nothing to do with the e-collar, because you could just apply the e-collar to any number of these different ways. Two of them specifically we'll address in a minute here. But you have to understand the learning theory of anything that you're doing with dogs. You could do it with a leash, right? I apply pressure on the leash, dog sits down, I release pressure. I'm using negative reinforcement in order to increase the likelihood of the sitting, right? Dog jumps on you. I tell them no, I pop the leash really hard, right? I used positive punishment in order to decrease the likelihood of the jumping, right? Again, dog sits down, I tell them good and give them a treat. I'm using positive reinforcement in order to increase the likelihood of the sitting, right? Dog jumps on me, I take the treats away, they sit back down, I give it back to them. I'm using the removal of the food to decrease the likelihood of the jumping, right? So anything you're doing, you have to fit into those categories. So now we'll implement the e-collar use into those things. Catch my breath. So implementing the science of the e-collar into it, the e-collar can only be used in one of two ways: positive punishment or negative reinforcement. And these are the two that typically positive-only trainers say they don't work, right? Well, they do work because it's learning theory. It's science-backed. It fucking works, right?
Yeah.
What they're implying when they say it doesn't work is they're saying that the other two are more effective, right? Which, listen, there are scientific articles and studies out there that show that a dog, obviously, that is very motivated by something, positive reinforcement will get the point across faster, which I would agree with, right? We obviously want to reinforce and teach everything as positively as possible, because if you can get the dog motivated to do it, they're going to be more likely to do it for you in the long run, right?
Yeah.
But no matter what, there are outside reinforcers that no matter what, there's going to be other things your dog is more motivated to do, which is where you need to implement those other two ways, right? So whatever. So positive punishment with the e-collar is when we're using a single tap correction with it. So the dog does something incorrect and we give a correction to decrease the likelihood of the incorrect choice. That could be a behavioral issue like jumping, barking, biting, or it could be non-compliance of a known command. I tell the dog sit, the dog knows how to sit and chooses to blow me off, and I give a high correction for blowing me off. I'm decreasing the likelihood of blowing me off in that case, right? The other way is negative reinforcement, which is we're typically teaching stages, right? So we're teaching a behavior. I'm holding a button down, releasing the button when the dog does a certain thing to show the dog what that stimulation means, right? And to increase the likelihood of the dog doing that thing. So in our e-collar system, we always use it in the order of negative reinforcement first, positive punishment second, right? So I'm going to spend the time teaching that stimulation at a low level with every single command using negative reinforcement, right? Getting onto the bed, getting into the sit, getting into the heel position, coming to me, any of those types of things. Once the dog shows a clear understanding of both the command as well as that stimulation and the off switch for that stimulation with that command, then I switch to positive punishment, where I'm just using that stimulation the dog understands now at a higher level for non-compliance of a known command. End clip. So listen, sciencey, whatever, understanding the learning theory is really important. I think that question, the real question should have been, like I said, what is the learning theory and how do you implement any of these tools in that way? Because like I said, it's not tool specific. It's just how you're implementing that tool, because any of these tools can be used the same. I can use a fucking treat as positive punishment. Say I don't know. I got a chuck it ball that my dog likes to chase, right? And my dog jumps on me and I tell him no and I throw the chuck it ball at their head, right? Assuming my dog doesn't like having a chuck it ball thrown at their head, that would be positive punishment. I'm adding something to the equation, right, to decrease the likelihood of a behavior, right? Like all of these things are the same. I could use my hand, right? I could pet my dog and give them good positive reinforcement for sitting. Or if I ask them to sit and they don't sit, I could push down on their butt. And then when they sit, stop pushing down on their butt, which would be negative reinforcement, right? So I'm applying pressure and releasing pressure when the dog does a specific thing, right? I could use that same tool, my hand, as positive punishment. My dog, I ask them to sit, they don't sit, and I tell them no and give them a side poke, the Cesar Millan side poke, right? And that would be me adding something to the equation to decrease the likelihood of them blowing me off, right? So any of these things, you have to understand how you're implementing them, because here's the thing. All of those things done sloppily don't work either, because a lot of people get hung up on low-level e-collar training, right? Okay, cool. Low-level e-collar training only works if the dog has clear understandings of the off switches for things. So let's say I'm trying to use negative reinforcement, right? And I'm telling the dog, sit, and holding the button down and then releasing it when they get halfway down and then they finish sitting on the ground. I could do that 9 gazillion times, but if I'm not consistent with where that off switch happens when the dog's butt is fully on the ground, they're never going to make the correlation between that stimulation and the position, right? So you have to be able to break it down in that way and understand how that works so that you could use your praise effectively. So you could use your leash effectively. So you could use your e-collar correctly. So you could use your food correctly, right? And if you don't understand learning theory, you're never going to be utilizing those correctly, which means your training is not going to be as efficient as it should be. So, mic drop.
So that's the problem with positive only. They're only using half the equations.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's correct. They're only using half the equation and just kind of forgetting 2 other ones, right? Which you can't just forget. I mean, they exist. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that blows my mind sometimes is like, they're there for a reason, right? Like, they do work. And listen, we could argue all day long of how much should we use some of them, but no matter what, even if you're not providing it, the environment is going to be providing those things to the dog, right?
Yeah.
Let me give you a good natural example, right? Your dog's outside, right?
Yeah.
It starts raining, right? Oh no, it's hailing. Shit's fall, right? It's crazy. Oh my God, stuff's falling all over me. Your dog comes running over to the back patio and gets under the shelter, and then no longer rain and stuff is falling on them. Negative reinforcement. They removed the hail from the equation to reinforce the likelihood of them getting onto the porch. Right?
Wow.
Oh, negative reinforcement doesn't work, right? Let's take another one, right?
Okay.
Your dog's running at your dog gets off leash and runs up to a stranger, and the stranger is scared and they kick the dog to get him to go away. positive punishment. That person applied positive punishment to decrease the likelihood of that person running or that dog running over to that person all aggressive like, right? There's a cactus in the desert and your dog runs over to it and tries to sniff it and gets poked in the nose. Positive punishment. You know what I mean? Like nature provides all of these things so that our dogs learn from them, right? So for us to say that they don't exist or they don't work is just so unbelievably unrealistic because dogs out in the wild are experiencing these types of things all the time, right? So you have to be aware of them and you have to make sure that you're understanding how to implement them, you know? So, good one.
So the equation is everywhere.
The equation is everywhere. All right, here we go.
That was a good one.
Let's see what we got next here.
Man, I'm really excited for next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. All right, introducing a new dog to a cat. Do's and don'ts. Also, how to deal with crate anxiety in puppies.
Ooh.
All right. Introducing a dog to a cat. This is a pretty easy one. Dogs and cats is... Everybody gets hung up on this one. I think shelters like to think that, dogs that aren't good with cats are just forever not going to be good with cats, as opposed to understanding that that's almost even more easy to control than like dog aggression or any of those types of things, right?
Yeah.
Because you figure prey drive related things, right? So a dog that likes to chase and try to bite at cats or whatever it may be, it's so not an emotionally charged behavior like aggression is, right? So a prey drive instinct is like it's an instinct. It's exactly that, right? It's something that just like, I see it, I have to go chase it. I see it, I have to go chase it. There's not this big like emotional, like I'm scared of this thing or I'm angry with this thing or whatever it may be, like there is with dogs. Like, if the dog is aggressive towards another dog, like they are hyped up, they're ready to go. There's like hormones driving and stuff like that. Like it's a big deal, right? So because of that, all you have to do is teach the dog to control that impulse. And all that means is you just have to have a high level of training on them and start to create consequences for doing that thing, right? So you're essentially snapping them out of it right away, but you're not shifting a deeply ingrained emotional fear of something, right? So cat stuff, I mean, we've seen dogs too that like really wanted to kill cats, right? Like they were just like hunters and they wanted to chase these things down and eat them. They
wanted to kill and eat.
Right?
Okay.
Vinny, when he first met Turk, our cat, he was the same way. He wanted to chase this cat around everywhere. He would just get hyped up. The cat would pop out of nowhere. He's like, oh my God, I got to go after it, right? Couple high level corrections on an e-collar later, they could care less about each other, right? It's as simple as that. Creating communication good enough to be able to teach the dog, you're just not allowed to do that. Right? The biggest things I recommend for people is as you're working through it, if you really are scared your dog is going to like full on pick up the cat and kill it, just put a muzzle on the dog, have your e-collar cranked really, really high. And sometimes I'll do like a 3-tap procedure. So I'll have that e-collar set almost all the way up. I'll let the dog go run after him. I'll say, no, tap, tap, tap. Right? 3 big corrections for that. You should see the dog jump and go running away from the cat. Do that a couple of times and you literally should be past it within like 2 days. I mean, it's as simple as that, honestly. From there, you could practice other impulse control exercises like your recalls and your bed stays and things like that. But I think a common misconception is that you need to have the dog like fully trained in order to address that, where you don't. We've worked with lots and lots of dogs before that had no training on them, that they really just needed them to stop chasing the cats. And we just used an e-collar, we addressed it, we got them past it. So cats, that's it. Get an e-collar. It's going to make it very, very easy to do so. Do's and don'ts. I don't know if you're referring to the dog and cat situation or just general do's and don'ts. So I'm just going to make the quickest, easy one in the world, right?
Okay.
Do train your dog using balanced training techniques. Do get an e-collar and make sure you use the e-collar in the high arousal situations forever. Yeah. Do make sure that you are providing your dog enough mental stimulation. Notice I didn't say physical stimulation because it's all about the mental stimulation. Get them thinking and you won't have to walk them as many miles per day.
Get in their heads.
Don't do on-leash greetings with people or dogs. When you're out on the walk, if somebody says, can I pet your dog? You say, no, sorry, we're training. If you're out on the walk and somebody lets them pull their dog over to your dog, you say, hey, my dog's not friendly, even if it is. Don't use positive-only training. Because it's not going to get you the results you want. I promise it won't. Don't Take your dog to unbearably busy bars, restaurants, and patios if you are trying to enjoy yourself and not pay attention to your dog. If you're going to take your dog to those types of places, take them to those places with the expectation of training and you being chaperone. Don't take your dog to dog parks because you don't know the other dogs there. You don't know if they're vaccinated. You don't know how social they are. You don't have control over what the other people are doing in there, so you can cause problems. Don't. Let me think of one more here. I got to think of one more. Josh, can you think of any don'ts? Can you think of any do's?
You hit every single one I was thinking of.
Did I hit them?
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are my quick do's and don'ts. I don't have another one right now. Last one. How to deal with crate anxiety in puppies. Okay. So, first thing here. Get the dog in a crate. Right? A lot of people will look at, they'll get a new puppy, they'll put the dog in the crate, and the dog will whine, bark, and howl all night, and they say this doesn't work, and they take the dog out of the crate. So what do? They reinforce the crate anxiety, right?
It works.
It works. And here's another thing. When you get a puppy, you better expect that you're not going to sleep for the first week because the dog's going to freak out in the crate. You kind of signed up for it. I don't want to hear, I've had people come in, I just couldn't tolerate it. I got a migraine. It's like, listen, you signed up for it.
Yeah.
When you got a puppy, you signed up for needing to put up with that stuff. You signed up for piss and shit to be all over your house when the dog has accidents everywhere. You signed up for needing to wake up in the middle of the night to let the dog out to go to the bathroom. You signed up for needing to come home on your lunch break to let the dog out or hire a pet sitter to let the dog out in the middle of the day because they can't hold their bladder for that long. You signed up for all of these things, right? So I don't want to hear it. So for the first week, you just put the dog in the crate and you leave them in the crate at nighttime and when you're not home, right?
Yep.
If you're working from home, like 90% of people are right now, the worst thing that you can do is not have the dog in a crate ever because you're home all the time, which I see all these people do. And then what happens is the dog is 5 months old and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to be going back to work soon. I don't know what to do, right? So what they wind up doing is then they try to rush the crate training process. Then the dog's even more anxious, right? If you're working from home right now and you have a dog, even if you're going to be working from home forever for the rest of time, you need to find 3 to 4 hours per day while you're home to put the dog in the crate for. It's nap time. It's getting the dog used to the crate. It's making sure that they have the nap time so they're not irritable out throughout the day when they start getting tired and start trying to bite at everything and jump all over everything. It's creating forced separation. It's getting the dog used to it, right? Have the dog in the crate for 3 to 4 hours. I would recommend 4 hours every single day on top of that evening time if you're working from home right now. Now, here's the next side of the equation. You have 2 types of puppies, right? You have puppies that are not super anxious. They're not super anxious. They might just be a little whiny and they're not used to the crate and they kind of make a lot of noise and stuff and they get over it in like 4 or 5 days as they realize they're not getting let out.
Yep.
Then you have the dogs that genuinely are genetically a little bit crate anxious or confinement anxious. And you do all of these things, you do them correctly, you make sure that the dog is in the crate at night when you're not home. If you're working from home, the dog is in the crate for 4 hours throughout the day, and you're a week in, 2 weeks in, and the dog is still making a ton of noise and stuff in the crate. From there, you need to then implement techniques to get the dog to chill out, right? That may be corrections in the crate. That could be pennies in a bottle. You take it and throw it at the crate door when the dog starts making a bunch of noise to startle them out of their anxious state and interrupt them. You could have an e-collar when the dog is old enough. You could use a pet corrector while the dog's making noise in the crate, but you got to figure out a way to address that crate anxiety. One last technique as far as crate anxiety is concerned, don't create arousal when you let the dog out of the crate. I'll see a lot of people make the mistake if they get home from work, they open the door, and then it's just, oh my God, I'm so excited to see you. And they create all this energy and they create all this contrast of when we're in the crate, it's boring and it's horrible and it's awful. And as soon as they let me out, I get super jacked up. So what you do is you create all of this arousal and all of this buildup of as soon as they get home, I need to get super, super pumped, which makes them more anxious in the crate. So biggest things here, get the dog in the crate. Get the dog in the crate enough and make sure if the dog is still really bad after a couple of weeks, you have a way to correct them for that anxiety.
Nice.
Pretty straightforward. All right. So last question here is from Sydney, Ginger's owner. You were talking about her last time. Woo, you go.
Hello.
All right. Ginger's owner asks, How to give one of your dogs a command, but not the other dog. Do you use their name before the command if you only want one to come and not the other? For an example, say one's name, then no, if you only want to tell one of them no. This is a good question.
It is.
This is a good question because I get asked this pretty frequently, and I don't talk about it enough, and I want people to know my opinion on it. So this is the David the Dog Trainer way of giving your two dogs commands at once.
Is this trademark too?
TM. The David the Dog Trainer way. Okay, so here's the way I look at this, right? Personally, the way I live with my dogs, I cannot think of a single time I've ever needed one dog to do one thing and the other dog to do another, right? Mm-hmm. Now, there are definitely times where I only needed one dog to do something, but in all of those situations, it's never been an issue if the other dogs do it as well. For example, putting if I need to put Vinny's e-collar on, but not the other dogs, and I need to tell him come to put it on, right? It doesn't matter if all three of them come over to me, right? Now, if I only need him to do it, I'm only going to enforce it with him, obviously. But I don't care if he comes and the others stay doing whatever it is that they're doing, right? Other examples, needing one dog to do a bed stay while the other does commands and stuff in the room, right? If I'm going to be training one of the dogs, I don't need the other dogs to not be there because those are real life, everyday distractions I need the dog to work through. Now, you could give me the argument of, well, what if your dog beat your other dogs doing it with the other dog is disruptive to that dog's learning process? Wouldn't you want the other dogs in a bed stay in the corner while you're training that single dog? And it's like, at that point, if my dog is that early in the learning process, those dogs shouldn't even be out altogether while I'm doing it, because no matter what, if I'm doing a bed stay with the other ones in the corner, I'm going to need to interrupt the training process I'm doing with the one dog if they break that command and start trying to interrupt, which is going to take away from the learning process with that dog, right? So they should just be put away at that point.
Yeah.
Right? So personally, I don't give different commands to different dogs like that. Frankly, I want all of my dogs to respond as a unit. Again, we have the exterminator here right now, and Kate has all of the dogs in a bed stay right now, or a down stay right now while they're working around, right? I need all of them to be responsive to just come and down if I ask them to, right? And I'm going to enforce it like a unit because that makes it easier, where if I needed to go through the process of like, Vera, come down, Deli, come down, Vinny, come down, et cetera, that's way more of a pain in the ass for me to do than just teaching everything as a unit. When I'm walking, I need all of the dogs to heel with me, right? Yeah. When I'm stopping, I need all of them to come to a stop with me and get into a stationary position when I ask them to. When I have people come over the house, I need all of them to get on the bed, et cetera, right? Now, the only variation to this, like she had said, is the no marker, right? Say I'm correcting one dog but not the other. And this one's a little bit different, right? Because there's not really a way to distinguish that, like, this marker is exactly for you from a verbal standpoint. Me saying, Vinny, no. Deli, no. Vera, no. They're not going to really make that correlation that this is just for them and not for the other ones. Right? Now, there are times that I'm going to need to correct just one dog at a time, and typically what I'll do is I'll utilize my body language and the way that I'm communicating with them to get that point across effectively, right? So, for example, if I have all of the dogs out, I'm going to do it one of two ways, right? One is if I'm just correcting one of them, I'll be very direct about which one I'm talking to. So say I have three people at this table. Let's use it from a human standpoint. I'm correcting you for something, right? I'm not going to be like, Josh, no, right? It's going to be no, right? Where I'm interacting directly with you. There's eye contact made. It's very, very clear. And I'm saying it in a way where you're getting the point that that word is coming from me, but the others aren't phased or affected by that mark because I'm not saying it in a way where it's being geared towards them, right? Or option two is, frankly, if I'm correcting one dog for something and the others are all kind of nearby with it, like say they're rushing the door and I need to tell them no for it, even if one dog is the main culprit at that point, I'm going to say it in a way where, like, you all kind of need to chill out a little bit, right? So if I say no, like, just like, no, right? And all of the dogs are kind of like checking in, like, whoa, what's going on? What do we need to be paying attention to right now? It's not really a problem either. I look at this the same as some people will, like, spell shit out in lessons, right? Where, like, they're like, oh, I have to spell out walk or like okay or this or that, because if I'm just talking in conversation and my dog's in a bed stay 700 feet away and they hear me say okay in conversation to somebody, they get up. But I said okay, so it's okay. No, we train these dogs to respond not only just to verbals here, but also to very clear direction, right? It's not an excuse if I'm talking to you and I have a dog way back there in a bed stay and I say okay right now, that's a release for them. They should know that. And they should be able to distinguish the difference between that. And we make that association with the dog by enforcing it that way. If I'm just saying it in conversation and you get up on it, I'm going to correct you for it because I need it to be very clear that I'm telling you okay right now. Right? So I look at things that way. When I'm working with multiple dogs, I treat them as a unit. I enforce everything all the same. I don't try to create confusion, especially, listen, here's the thing, especially very early in the training process, or unless you're like a very high level dog trainer. Like I could get away with trying to do those types of things with my dogs because of the level of obedience that I have over them in those situations. And because I know how my body language works and how I can communicate individually with them in an effective manner, 99% of clients out there are not going to be able to do that. Right? And because you're not going to enforce it very strictly, it's not going to be reliable long term, which means it's not even really fair for you to try to enforce it at that point. Because if your dog's not 1,000,000% rock solid with bed, sit, down, come, this, that, and then you start correcting them for responding to it sometimes when you're talking to your other dog, you're going to wind up screwing up all of your commands. Right? And it gets very confusing very fast. So that's the reason why I choose not to do that. I don't want to ever correct my dog for responding to a command in a situation like that where I'm going to decrease the likelihood of them doing that behavior when I'm not going to be consistent about enforcing it anyways. You know?
Gotcha.
So that's the way I've always looked at that kind of stuff. So don't overthink it. It's pretty easy. And then the last question Sydney asked is she sent me a video. She said, she scared the shit out of me when she did this, but why? Is there a way to stop her from doing this behavior? I'm going to play this video real quick because it's kind of funny, and then we'll talk about it for a second.
Oh my loop.
It's actually funny.
Yeah.
Okay, listen. She's telling your annoying puppy to chill out. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, come on. She's laying on her bed, and she got this weird little puppy with a big-ass cone on that's bumping into her and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I would tell that puppy to get the fuck out of my space as well. You know? So here's the thing. There's no people get real scared from the... Here, let me... Can this show in the video? Is that showing?
Yeah, it's showing.
It's showing. Okay. Is it clear enough? Do I need to pull it away or put it closer?
No, you're good.
Okay. You see it enough times now? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Everybody gets real up in arms over dogs creating boundaries, whether it's barking or snapping or whatever it may be. That is an effective / appropriate correction, in my opinion. Some dogs have personal space issues, right? Some dogs don't like when other dogs are all willy wonky in their space and bumping into them and all sorts of stuff, especially when you have a dog like Ginger who had a lot of dog issues to start with, right? She didn't really like other dogs. So the fact that that's how she's creating her boundaries with this puppy, A-okay in my book. I would leave it be. I'm sure it's a little startling initially because you're not expecting it. It's like, whoa, what's going on over there? But it's just not a problem, right? I don't have any sort of problem with dogs creating boundaries like that, especially if it's a younger dog and an older dog where the older dog is creating boundaries to the younger dog, and if the younger dog responds to it, frankly, right? That is normal and that is okay, and I have no problem with that, so I wouldn't sweat that a whole lot.
Nice.
All right. Random podcast numbers, 17 gazillion. We're going to wrap that up on that because we got started a little bit late, so we got an hour and a half of content here for you guys. Next week's is going to be really fun. Continue sending us questions so we can make these podcasts longer and longer, and we'd be happy to answer them for you.
Yeah.
Josh, what do you think? Anything?
Oh, that was great. I know it's a random podcast, so we got a little businessy side. I like that, and then we had really good questions again. I think we have really good viewers and listeners.
Great fans. All right, where are they gonna find you?
Josh Dobay Productions on Instagram and the website.com.
Hell yeah. David the Dog Trainer on Instagram. Send me your questions in DM format there. Check out the clips we're now uploading to YouTube. Very pumped on those. If you don't want to watch the entire 2 hour, 3 hour, whatever podcast, you could see just the bite-sized clips of certain topics and get a little bit of a teaser for it. Those are on YouTube now. Josh has been uploading those each week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And continue staying tuned for us growing and evolving the cast.
Yes. And if the best thing that you could do to help us is just go on YouTube, even if you've already watched it or listened to it, like if you just put a like down there, hit the little bell, subscribe. Yeah, it would help us grow organically over there, and I think that would be the best thing for us right now, especially with those clips. We would love to get those out to people and reach more viewers. So if you guys could go over to our YouTube channel and hit that like button. Comment too.
That's it. All right, guys. We'll catch you next time.